to start, you're going to leave a relatively long tail at the end of your yarn. So you're gonna like just pull it out like so. And then we're going to start by making a slip knot. So wrap the yarn around your finger twice like this. Take this second bar right here, put it over the first. Take the second bar again and put it over the first, and then just slip it off your finger like so, and you can tighten it up like that. The yarn on the back should be attached to your yarn ball, and then the yarn on the front should be your tail. And now we're going to slip the slip knot onto our needle like this, and you can tighten it. Okay, so we're gonna cast on some stitches. You're gonna hold the back yarn between two fingers and then slip your thumb underneath in between, and then with your pinky you're kind of just gonna clasp both of them so that it's secure, and you should be able to make something like a diamond or a square shape. And then you're going to move your hand around like that so it kind of makes a heart shape. And then we're going to be working with these 3 bars of yarn. So this is the first one, this is the second, and this is the third. So first we're going to hook our needle underneath the first bar, turn our hand with the motion, and then hook our needle over the third bar and underneath the hole that the second bar makes, like this. And then you're gonna let go of your thumb and then pull that. And that's the second stitch. Your slip knot counts as a stitch. The first stitch that you make using the long tail cast on method is your second stitch. Once more, you're going to make a heart, basically. Hook your needle underneath the first bar, move your hand with that motion, hook the needle over the third bar, pull it through this hole that the second bar makes. So you're going to do that for a total of 40 stitches, or however many stitches you want to cast on. Just make sure it's a multiple of 4. Alright, so I've casted on 40 stitches. We're going to cast on 1 extra stitch so we can join our row into the round seamlessly. So now I have 41 stitches, and now we're going to join our work into the round. If you're using a short cord, you're not going to have to use the magic loop method, but because I'm using quite a long cord, as you can see here, I'm going to be showing you all how to use that method if you are in the same boat as me. So first, you're going to split your stitches in half. It doesn't have to be exact, it can just be around half. And then do you see this little cord right here that shows up when you kind of like split it like that? You're going to pull on the cord. Make sure that the stitches here stay still, but just pull on the cord. And you're going to shimmy these stitches onto this part of the needle. Okay, perfect. And now what you're going to do is make sure the stitches are relatively close to the tip of the needles. And you're going to take this stitch, so the stitch that's not connected by any yarn pieces, and you're going to put it over to this needle. So like that. Make sure none of your stitches fall off. Now you're going to take the second stitch right here. So not the stitch that you just moved over, the stitch after that. And you're going to slide it off your needle and then just tighten your yarn using the longer yarn tail. And then you're going to take this stitch that you slid over and then put it back onto the other side. And you've joined your row seamlessly like that. You have to also make sure none of your stitches are twisted, by the way. So now you can start working on knitting your leg warmer. So before you start, just make sure you slip on a beginning of row stitch marker. And then you should have something that looks like this. If you're using a short cord, you can just knit around the round just like normally. But if you're using the magic loop method, I will show you how to do that. So make sure both of your yarn tails are behind your needles. We're going to be using this longer yarn tail that's connected to our ball of yarn to knit. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull this right needle up until there's a bit of cord on this side. And from far away it kind of looks like this. So you should have a loop of cord on this left hand side, and then you should have a loop of cord on this right hand side. That's why it's called the magic loop method. And then you're basically just going to be knitting normally. So to knit, you're going to take your right needle and slip it underneath this first stitch. So you should only be working with this part of the stitch, not the part on the back. And you're going to slip it underneath like so. Take your yarn, wrap it around your right needle, and then when you push your right needle back, you should be able to scoop up this bar of yarn, and then you can slide off that first stitch. And you've knitted your first stitch. Now let's knit the second one. Slip your right needle underneath this next stitch, wrap your yarn around your right needle, push down, and then you can pull up that bar of yarn, slip off the next stitch. And you're basically going to be continuing this all the way until this end right here. Okay, so as you can see, I have one more stitch left on my left needle. I'm going to knit it as per usual. And then what you're going to be doing is, do you see how you have this cord right here attached to your left needle, but you have all these stitches on the cord that isn't meeting a needle that you can knit? You're going to take the loop on the very back and pull it until the stitches are onto your left needle. And then you should be back to something that looks really familiar, because this is what your work looked like in the very beginning before we started knitting. And then again, you're going to take the right needle, pull it up until there's cord on this side as well as the back. And then you're going to continue knitting like so. And you're going to do that all the way until the end of your first round. Okay, so I've reached my last stitch, so I'm just going to knit that. And as you can see, these stitches are not on a needle, so we're just going to take this end loop and we're going to pull it until the stitches are onto a needle, like so. You're going to take your beginning of round marker, slip it back onto your right needle, and you're going to continue knitting all around until the length of your leg warmer this way is as long as you want, minus around 2 to 3 inches. I did also want to show everyone who's using a short cord what your work should look like. It should look like this. It's basically the same, you just have a short cord, so you don't need to use the magic loop method. And of course you would also just knit the same way, where you would just knit every stitch like so, all around your work until the end of the round. And then you would basically just knit the next round after that over and over again until your desired length. Okay, so I have stopped because I'm going to now make my ribbing, and I've knitted quite a long tube because I want my leg warmer to be like knee-high. But if you want yours to be like shorter, like the regular calf length, then you can basically knit up to half of this. But yeah, I knitted quite a lot. And now we're going to do our ribbing. So our ribbing is going to be 2 by 2 rib, and what that means is you're going to knit 2 stitches and then purl 2 stitches and basically repeat that pattern all around your round, and then continue doing that until you reach around 2 to 3 inches of ribbing, however much ribbing you want. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm starting from the beginning of my round, and you can tell because I placed my stitch marker on the right needle. So we're starting a new round, and what you're going to do is you're going to knit 1 first. So again, you're going to put your right needle through this first leg of the stitch on your left needle, and then you're going to wrap your yarn around your right needle, push it back, bring up this loop, and then drop the stitch off your left needle. Once more, you're going to knit 1 for a total of 2 knit stitches, just like this. And now we're going to purl. And purl is basically the opposite of knitting. So what you need to do is make sure your yarn, instead of it being behind your right needle, you need to switch it over to the front of your needle. And then instead of going through the leg like this, from the back to the front, we're gonna go from the front to the back. And then once more, wrap your yarn around your needle, like so, push it down, and pull up the loop from behind your stitch like that. And then you can drop that stitch off your left needle. Once more, you're going to purl 1 for a total of 2 purl stitches. And then you're basically going to be repeating that pattern. So I'm going to knit 2. So when you finish your purl, your yarn is going to be in front of your right needle, you're going to want to switch that over to the back and then knit 2. Now since you need to purl 2, you're going to switch your yarn over to the front of your needle and then purl 2. And you're basically going to be doing that all around until you reach the end of the first round. And then you're basically going to repeat that same pattern where you knit 2 and purl 2, knit 2, purl 2 for as long as you want until the height of the leg warmer is to your desired length. Okay, so I want to show you my round 2 of ribbing just in case you're unsure of how to go about that. So it's pretty easy. So you already established your knit 2, purl 2 pattern in that first round of ribbing. And when you're doing all the subsequent rounds, you should be knitting all your knits. So this is a knit stitch, so you're going to knit these 2, and then you should purl your purls. So you can tell these are purls because it looks like a horizontal bar. You're going to purl these 2 stitches. So basically, if you ever find yourself purling on top of a knit stitch or knitting on top of a purl stitch, that means you messed up somewhere. So I'm knitting my knits, I'm purling my purls, and it should still follow the pattern of knit 2, purl 2. And when you continue doing this, it should be establishing a pretty clear ribbed pattern. And you'll see it pretty easily once you knit at least like 1 inch. So I've finished my ribbing rounds, as you can see. And I'm just going to take off my stitch marker since I don't need that anymore. And we're going to bind off in 2x2 ribbing. So what that means is you have 2 knit stitches first. You're going to knit both of those. So you have 2 new stitches on your right needle. So you should have 2 of these on your right needle. Don't get it confused with the rest of the stitches behind here. And you're going to take the second loop and bring it over the first one. Then slip it off your right needle, like that. Next, we have a purl stitch. So you're going to purl that just once. You're always going to have 2 new stitches on your right needle, and then once again you're going to take the second stitch and bring it over the first and slip it off your needle. Next stitch is a purl stitch, so we're going to purl that. Again, take the second one, slip it over the first and off your needle. Next one is a knit stitch, knit that, slip it off, and you're basically going to repeat that same thing all around this entire last round until you reach this last stitch. When you're finished with your leg warmer, finished binding off and everything, yours should kind of look like this. Again, I made a really long one, so if you have a short one, then it would probably be like that short or something like that. And now I'm going to show you how to bind off. So we're first going to bind off this ribbed edge. You're going to take a tapestry needle, which is basically a needle looking thingy but with a blunt edge and a huge eye. You're going to thread your yarn through the needle, and then we're basically going to connect this top part. So you need to locate the V on this side of your work. So these are just stitches, not a V. This part right here is a V. You're going to slip your needle through both of these legs like that. Then you see how the yarn is coming out of this hole right here? You're going to put your needle through there. And then just tug on it, not too tightly. So it should look like that. It should look pretty seamless. Then you're going to go face the inside and you're going to weave your end through like this through the legs of these knit stitches, like what I'm doing right now. If it's easier, you can just do it one by one, like this. You don't have to like do it all at once. And then once you're done, just tug on it a little bit just to make sure everything's all good. And then if you have any yarn ends, you can just snip that off with a scissor. Now I'm going to show you how to weave in the ends on this bottom part where there is no ribbing. So again, you're going to thread the end of your yarn through the eye of the needle. And for this part, you're going to want to face the inside of your work. And you're basically going to follow these little noodle looking thingies. It kind of looks like ramen noodles to me. I'm going to weave in my ends one row below, so I'm just gonna take this needle and put it through this loop, and I'm gonna start weaving it in through here. So you kind of just like follow the noodle looking stuff, and it makes more sense the more you do it. So it goes through these two loops, so I'm gonna go through these, then down these, just like that, over and over again until you feel that your end is weaved in pretty nicely, because you don't want anything to like unravel or whatever, obviously. So this is a little extra thing, but if you want to see how I added bows onto my leg warmers throughout the actual thingy and then woven around this ribbed cuff, then stay tuned for that. So I'm first gonna show you how to make the ribbon that's like on the actual leg warmer. So you're gonna choose the spot where you want the ribbon to be. So I'm gonna put mine in the center over here, and you'll see these V stitches. You're just gonna choose one. So I'm gonna choose this one, put a crochet hook through that. You can also use a tapestry needle if you don't have a crochet hook. I just think it's easier to use a crochet hook. And I'm just basically gonna thread the ribbon through that stitch like this. And I'm gonna show you how to tie like a nice looking bow in case you're unsure of how to do that. So the trick is you have one side of the ribbon on the top and then one side of the ribbon on the bottom. The top ribbon needs to be slightly longer than the bottom one. So if I fold mine in half, kind of like this, you'll see that this top one is slightly longer. That's what you want. And then you're just gonna tie this into a knot. And the top one should still be on the top, bottom should still be on the bottom. You're gonna take the bottom one and fold it in half, sort of, with a little tail that looks kind of like a bunny ear. And you should face it horizontal towards you. Then take the longer one and fold it over perpendicular. And then you're gonna pull up a bunny ear from this hole that it creates. And then you can just like adjust it as you would like, and then it should make a decent looking bow like this. And by the way, I highly recommend using satin yarn that's made out of like poly, so like some kind of like synthetic like plastic. And then in order to seal the edges so they don't fray, is I use a lighter and I kind of just burn the edge like that, and it should be like sealed and like won't fray. And now we can start working on this ribbed part, how to like thread the ribbon through there. So you're gonna need a tapestry needle. I'm using a rather large one with a blunt end and then like a really large eye. And then I'm gonna take my ribbon and just thread it through that eye, and if the eye is like large, it makes it really convenient to like thread through and like really easy to work with. And then I'm just going to find whichever part I want it to be the front of the leg warmer. So I'm gonna choose this part, this side, and then I'm going to start threading my yarn through. So I like threading it underneath the knit stitches and then over the purl stitches. And I'm also gonna count up so that it's around half. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm gonna only thread it through the 8th stitch like so. You can pull your needle through. It should look like that. And then you can thread it underneath these purl stitches like so. And you're going to want to always count up just to make sure that it's always in the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm gonna thread it underneath here. And you can fix your ribbon just so that it's like lying flat if you care about that. And again, we're always going to just be threading it underneath these knit stitches, counting up from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because the 8th stitch is around half for me. And you're gonna do that all the way around the entire ribbing part until you reach this side. again. So I have finished threading it through, so I'm just going to take my tapestry needle off, and then I'm going to cut the excess ribbon, just making sure that the tail is relatively long so that you have enough to tie it into a bow. You can also tie it into a bow and then cut off the yarn, but since I already know the length that I want, I'm just going to cut off my yarn. And once you're done with that, you should have two really cute bow leg warmers if you chose to put on the bows.